My ship hung silently in space, not quite drifting. While its sensors sucked up every stray photon, every little electromagnetic wiggle, I read in silence. Quietly, I flipped a page of the printout. It didn't make sense to stay quiet inside my cozy cabin, but I did anyway. It helped me get in the mood for the coming hunt. The dominant species in this part of the galaxy was the Spar-ala aliens. Large, vaguely bovine-like aliens, the Spar-alans were descended from herbivores, like almost every other sentient Xeno out there. But while most Xenos expected, and feared, a loud, obvious predator to come tearing through their midst, the Spar-alans feared the quiet ambush. Some species feared the small and nimble predator, the rat that snuck into nests and stole eggs. Some species feared the large and unstoppable beasts, the bear chasing after you. And some fear the ambush, the snapping jaws of a wolf. But our task was to make sure all feared man. Man who could be nimble, unstoppable and hidden, all at once. And once they feared us, we would rule them through that fear. And the printout told me that the Spar-alans feared the ambush. Which was boring, but ever since humanity had decided to accept the role thrust upon us by xenophobia, we have taken some pride in catering to expectations. What was the point in being the ultimate predator if the prey was not in fear? How could they fear us if we didn't play on their paranoia? So it was my thankless task to float around. The squat, efficient hull of my vessel was camouflaged with carbon poles and taut, metallized mire into a much more imposing vague wedge shape. Imposing, if you're a bull-headed Spalan, that is. The printout told me the shape resembled the skull of the apex predator from their homeworld, a beast that got wiped out before humans started to play with fire. Racial memories can hang around for a long time, unless overridden. It was several days later when a quiet little alarm went off, letting me know that one of the remote sensors had picked something up. A fleet of transports had just dropped out of hyperspace and started the long trek from one jump point to the next. Their projected course would take them right past where I was, but they would be caught midway between jump points when passing me. I hummed tunelessly as I started plotting a course and making plans. Cold and passive as I was, they wouldn't know what hit them before it was too late to turn around. They would have no option beyond trying to burn past me or fight me. And Herbies know next to nothing about how or why humans fight. I had had enough time to study their formation as they fell towards the star. Several large transports in a tight group. A few faster, combat-capable ships along the outer rim. Bulls protecting their cows and calves, according to printouts. An instinctive behavior. When they recognized me as a threat, the faster ships would likely form a wall between me and the transports. I was, however, planning on abusing another of their instincts to catch my prey. I sprung my ambush as they were halfway between jump points. A cold-launched missile, accelerated on cold thrust only, had been underway for hours. As I engaged my engines and let my railgun send a projectile against one of the fighting craft, the missile silently selected the rearmost transport and started homing in on their drive array. As expected, the balls had formed a wall. I took the occasional pot shot at them to keep their focus on me. The stricken transport fell further and further behind the main formation as they burned hard towards the jump point. I was accelerating too, and would catch up with the stricken transport a short time before the main formation reached the jump point and hypered out. It would be a short time, but it would be enough time. Enough time that they would see me cut the transport off from the herd. Enough time that the escapees would spread the word. But not enough time for them to watch me rip and tear into the transport. They would have plenty of time while in hyperspace to imagine the results. As I drifted past the transport, although drifting isn't quite the right word when moving at near relativistic speeds, I let two carefully aimed shots loose against the lagging transport. One at the communications array, which had been transmitting a long series of cries for help, emergency messages and Spar-alan curses, and one towards the damaged engine, crippling it completely. As the other transport started phasing out, I reversed thrust and slowed down, until I was flying in formation with the crippled ship, I waited for the airlock to cycle, glancing at myself in the internal monitor. My combat suit was bone white, but with red paint on the hands, forearms, and lower faceplate. According to the printout, it should register as the colour of blood to the Spallans. Sharp pointed studs cover the knuckles and the back of my hands. A tranquilizer gun on my right hip mirrored the much more lethal gun on the left. If any of the transport's passengers were less than meek, the red would be more than just paint when I was done. Pausing to interface a portable AI-powered hacking unit to a Spar-Alarm data terminal, I slowly and methodically made my way through the transport. Engineering deck was devoid of Xenos, likely evacuated when my missile struck. The small bridge was deserted, the crew likely seeking the comfort of the herd, as my plasma cutter made short work of the armoured bulkhead. That left, if my printout had been correct, the habitation area. A reinforced deck large enough to hold the crew and passengers. Large enough to make a stand, if the Herbies had the bravado to stand up to me. I paused. The habitation area was sealed, of course, but the real bother was the 3 young males standing in front of the contracted doorway. They were nervous, yes, but they had either chosen or been forced to take on the role of grown bulls, protectors of the herd, a bulwark against predators, a disposable distraction, or, from my point of view, 3 sentients not thinking things through. I sighed to myself as I stepped into their line of view, and fired my tranq gun. 2 of the young males dropped before they had taken 2 steps towards me. The 3rd kept coming. Either I hadn't gotten a clean shot, or he was so full of adrenaline analogues as to counteract the drug. I holstered the gun, braced 1 foot against the deck, and waited. Just as he lowered his head to spear me with his twin horns, I let my right fist fly forward. The combat suit's hydraulics whined as I made contact. Through the audio pickups, I could hear his skull crack, his spine compress, his hooves sliding on the deck plates. He crumpled in a heap in front of me, blood gushing from his mouth. I sighed again. The young male was dead or dying. A lost opportunity. I studied the doorway for a few seconds. The Herbies inside had likely witnessed the short battle through hidden pickups, so any delays on my part would weaken the shock effect. And since haste was needed, I started punching the door, with the suit's augments turned up to the maximum. Each blow buckled and bent the door panels, until the door collapsed into a heap of broken parts. I slowly stepped over the heap, and surveyed the room beyond. 61. Add in the 3 young males I had already taken care of, and it made a full 8 squared, which, if the printout was correct, was what I could expect to find on the transport. A ship might comfortably fit 24 humans. I kept still, the combat suit's faceplate an unreadable surface, as I waited to see what the Herbies would do. They had all moved towards the back of the open deck, young ones innermost, a semicircle of females making a wavering wall between them and me. Through the microphones and amplifiers in my suit, I could hear their breathing and nervous movements. As I slowly started moving towards them, between food dispensers and discarded personal items, one of the females took a hesitant step forward from the group. "There were 3 males?" I considered her question. Perhaps they had not watched the short skirmish after all. 2 of them might survive for a while longer. "One was my offspring." "None of them could stop me." "The herd will trample you for this." "The herd abandoned you. You are the weak, the stragglers, the sick that are expendable." Each of my words made her shudder. I took a step forward. She took 2 back. You're human, are you not?" "I am man, yes. And you're just Herbies, just prey. That is all your kind have ever aspired to be." "Meat-eater, predator, but the herd will be back." "Omnivore, to be pedantic. And no, they won't. Not in time to help you. Or at all. The weak, sick, and lame are sacrificed. It is the Herbie way, is it not?" I brought her fist down on the computer terminal as she started to speak. It crumpled and caught fire in a most satisfactory way. They all stared at it as the fire alarm went off. No one moved, apart from some of the younglings cowering in the back of the group. You are prey that got caught. Your drives are down. Your comms are down. Your mainframe is compromised. You are dead meat talking. And if you all don't fall into line, life support is the next system to fail. How could you know that, Predator? I looked at her, still in front of the small herd as if protecting them, or hoping to die first so she didn't have to watch the rest be butchered. Because, I said, as the suit's audio filters caught onto the tone of my voice and made it more growling, I will destroy it myself. Meat keeps well in a vacuum, even if I prefer it on the hoof. The group shifted uneasily and angrily as I spoke, fear and anger at my words radiating off them like heat from an unshielded reactor core. A couple of the young bulls were eyeing each other and me as they shifted nervously. A little while later, with two more adolescent bulls laying tranked out on the deck, the rest of the group had been bullied into a simmering, fearful quiet. I recognized their behavior. Don't provoke the beast, they each thought, and the beast might kill someone else first. Herbies. Despite all their differences, they tend to be alike in many ways. A curt command got them to carry the 3 bodies from the hallway into the room. 2 of them, I assumed, would recover in a few hours. The last one would expire before that. Hourly impassive, I sighed to myself as the female who had dared speak to me kneeled by the soon-to-be body. A small alarm went off in my ear, letting me know that the hacking unit had finished sinking its virtual fangs into the Spa'alan systems, its claws and tendrils holding tight and binding the stricken transport to my ship. This derelict, I said as I straightened up, this meat locker, is now slave to my ship. I looked around at the Spa'alanans. The young ones were still herded against the far wall, the older children and adult females standing in front of them. No one dared to look directly at me, but if I read the body language right, my words caused fear and unease. I almost nodded to myself, but stopped in time. I slowly scanned the remaining Spa'alanans, then pointed at 2 of the young females. You and you. You will accompany me to my ship, to ensure cooperation from the rest. The 2 I had pointed at shrank back, trying to blend in with the others. The female who had dared speak hesitated, then very slowly took a step forward. Human? I smiled grimly behind the unreadable faceplate of my combat suit. Yes, prey? She hesitated, casting sidelong glances to the rest of the group. You want me to take you instead? Her legs trembled as she nodded. And the others will cooperate? Again she nodded. I smiled. I had hoped for something like this. I am, she said, the captain of this vessel. I shook my head, a gesture that was both human and universal. You were the captain. Now you are meat on the hoof, prey. Follow. I walked towards the broken-down door, past the recumbent bodies on the floor, without bothering to see if she followed. If I had read their body language correctly, she would. The others would do nothing to save her, sacrificing her for the benefit of the many, just as their herd has sacrificed them. Herbies are easy. I heard the sharp breath as we got onto my ship. She probably expected a slaughterhouse with blood and viscera everywhere. If so, she was disappointed. Not giving her much time to think, I pointed to a passenger seat, set low against the floor, and in full view of my pilot's seat. Sit down, buckle in. We will blink out as soon as I can adjust the ghost space bubble to encompass your derelict. To her credit, she worked out the one-way buckles quickly. Once locked, it would require a signal from the pilot station to open them again. All secure? She hesitated, then nodded without looking at me. Probably, I decided, questioning what unherbie-like impulse had gotten her to volunteer as my prisoner, snack, plaything. Whatever she was thinking, she was in for a surprise. I strode over to the suiting station to clean and stow my combat suit. I hate that part of the job, I said, as I had gotten my helmet off. I'll never get used to it. I could hear her sharp breath. I'm not sure what startled her more, my voice unamplified and unfiltered, or my words. Such needless waste. The lost potential. The hatred. I can feel it, even through the suit. She was quiet as I unbuckled the rest of the suit and began stowing it. Not the quiet of a Herbie hoping a carnivore would walk past. Not the quiet of a prey hoping to turn the tables on their predator. No, it was the quiet of a sentient listening. Will they comply? I asked quietly as I cleaned the gloves. Will they stay quiet and not endanger themselves? She started to say something, then hesitated. I turned to look at her, waiting patiently. She was looking down at the deck plating. I carefully plugged the umbilicals in to let the suit charge, then took 2 steps over and sat down in the pilot seat. I waited until she finally looked up at me, seeing me out of the combat suit for the first time. Will they? Yes, she said in a small voice, without me there to drive them on. They will default to safe, herdish behavior. She nodded, as I said what she had left unsaid. Good, I continued, as I started adjusting the ghost space pinch field. I would hate more losses. Less meat for your belly, human? I smiled, very briefly, at the resurgence of her defiance. No. I hardly ever eat meat these days unless it's grown in a vat. No. It is the lost potential, the opportunities that would pass us by, the slowing of change. She turned her head slightly, to get me more fully in view of her dominant eye, staring at me as if in deep thought. I know what you're thinking, Herbie. You're thinking, what is the Predator's game here? Or something like it. I glanced over at the screen, nodding to myself as I saw the countdown starting. This isn't a game. In a few handspans of time, this ship, and your transport with it, will blink out and take a detour through ghost space. For some reason, most herbivores get nauseated by the process, which is why Herbies use the hyperlanes instead. I slowly buckled myself in. What I had said was a partial lie. Ghost space upset everyone. But humans were willing to cope with the discomfort, for the flexibility and adaptability it provided. Upon exit from ghost space, I continued, we will be in orbit around, well, the name of the place doesn't matter and won't tell you anything. You and the remains of your herd will be disembarked, processed, and then allowed to integrate with the other inhabitants. Other inhabitants? She sounded bewildered. Not too surprising given everything that just happened. Yes, last time I delivered a cargo, there were Kukons, Gatans, Gefis, Zalzals, and Sekors living there, in addition to Spa'alans and Terrans, of course. It is a livestock planet, then. Meat on the hoof for... No. My voice had been harder than I intended. She shrunk in her chair. No, I repeated in a softer voice. Quite the opposite. It is a place where they are learning to live together, and to live with humans. Younglings adapt quickly, as a rule. Grown sentience takes longer, but generally adapts. Those who can't are allowed to withdraw to single-species enclaves. In time, the project was spread to other planets, other systems. I tightened my harness as the countdown got closer to 0. But why? Why, Predator? To show the galaxy that humans are just human. To prove to you all that we're not the monsters you insisted to see us as. To regain the chance you denied us by seeing us as nothing but predators and yourself as nothing but prey. She sat in silence as the countdown got closer and closer to 0, staring at the deck. I placed my hand on the activator switch. She glanced up as I sighed heavily. I'm sorry about your son, Herbie. I did not wish to kill him, and his death will weigh heavily on me for the rest of my life. Something akin to understanding started to fill her bovine face. The countdown reached 0, and I pushed the activator switch. The rush of the ghost space interface buffeted our minds and souls, making conscious thought thankfully impossible for a while.